increase the soil shear strength so we don't have something like this happen. We want to decrease settlement under the load, decrease permeability, so not have water penetrate our pavement layers, and which will increase the life of those repairs that we're talking about. Next slide. So kind of the equipment we wanted to focus on were plate compactors and rammer style or jumping jack compactors. Obviously there's a range of weights and sizes. I saw this morning we talked about in the Army kit, I believe it's a bigger, diesel powered compactor. I don't think I realized until the last maybe 4 or 5 years how big the plate compactors can get. Some of them you have to actually wheel them out there, that kind of thing. But it's the same concept, no matter what you're using. You want to select these two depending on your applications. In my opinion, jumping jack is preferable in most cases because in general it provides more compactive effort than definitely than that size plate compactor. So you want to use jumping jack, except for sands, you're just going to throw material all over the place if you use jumping jack for sands. So that's why if you notice in my brief on sand grid, we just had a plate compactor. So these are really the two we're going to kind of focus on today. Next slide. So achieving good compaction in a small crater, 8 foot to 10 feet by 10 feet is actually kind of hard, harder than you think it would be. And the reason is there's not enough space to get anything heavy in there. You think, I can get a skid steer in there. Skid steer is actually longer than you think. It's like as long as they're repaired practically. So, you can't get the roller attachment or something like that in there. It can be a little bit difficult to get good compaction. But what you can do to combat that is keep your lift thicknesses down. As I mentioned earlier, you want to keep those to 6 inches or less. And then basically once you've got your material in there, you got leveled out your loose material, you want to start from one corner and work towards the center. And as you do that, you want to, when you kind of work your way back out, as you're compacting the next lane over, you want to overlap with what you've already compacted, about a third to a half. To make sure you provide good overlap. You don't want to just start on a new, uncompacted lane. Typically, we recommend 2 to 4 coverages, and I'll define that on the next slide. And again, I mentioned this during the GSLs, but you want to compact your subgrade before you place your backfill in order to maximize the life of your repair. Next slide. So a single coverage is defined as starting at one corner of a repair, working your way to the center, thus covering the entire area once. And then once you return and spiral your way back out, that's another coverage. So if you hit next, I think I've got a little graphic on here. Yeah, so this is one coverage. Completely covered at once with the compactor. That's what we define as a coverage. Next slide. Oh, so I've got, going back out. So I just want to make that clear if we're talking about that out on the site. Next slide. So this is about as far as we'll get into civil engineering in this classroom setting today probably, but I wanted to mention it. So the closer you can compact your soils to optimal moisture content, the higher density you're going to be is kind of the point of this graph. This is what you learn in junior level civil engineering and soil mechanics. So if you look at this plot, you got dry density versus water content. And basically, you've seen it, if you've been at the beach, you can't make a sandcastle out of the sand next to the hotel, right? You got to get out towards the water where you've got a little bit more. The moisture basically kind of lubricates the soil particles, allows them to slide into a denser pack. But you can see if you keep adding water, water is less dense than the soil, so you're going to get too far and it's just going to be wet mush, right? So we're looking for that top of the curve right there. That's what we call optimum moisture content and maximum dry density. And this is a lab test you do. It's called a Proctor, if you're familiar with that. But it's not something typically you would do in the field in an ADR kind of scenario. But what I wanted to mention it was that third bullet, adding some water. You can add some before you compact, but just don't add too much because drying soil back out is kind of hard. So you don't want to overshoot it. You can add a little, if you're having trouble, getting the material to compact together, you can sprinkle a little bit of water over it and see if that helps, but just don't overdo it. So that's the point of that slide. Next. So kind of general safety like we've been talking about for compacting, pretty much the same as we've been discussing. Any questions on best practices for compaction? We're fans of the roller compactor. You can hit it with vibration, sometimes when you're putting the pod cover on, you've got access to the material once you get it to the top, right? So that's something you can do to try to get a little bit more compactive effort on your materials. But when you're in the hole, these methods we talked about just now are the way to go. Okay, so Brian's going to come up and talk